Talking financial organization and a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
If you listen to my recent podcast with Lynn Leggett, you know that I do watch and listen to sports. Tennis became my first love at 9 years old, and I played competitively and for love for close to 20 years. I was never going to be great, though I played with all my heart, mind, and soul. The harsh reality of being 5'3", with very short arms, I made up with strategy in developing my baseline and body shots. Over time, my knees could no longer keep up, but I'll tell you more about that later. Even though my body has failed the game, my mind has not, and I keep up with the players on the circuit, rapidly researching the network times for all the majors to make sure I can record as many games as possible. Tennis is a mental game of focus and strategy. Watching Serena serve her 120-mile-an-hour serves is great, but if her head is not in the game, it doesn't matter how fast her serve is. It doesn't hurt, but she won't win the match. The professional women's circuit right now is packed full of young and a little older, I won't say old, but older talent. And they are such a stinking joy to watch. I can see their potential, and my heart breaks when they just can't get their head into the game. In fact, way too many times, the favored player is not beaten by the opponent, but by themselves. I watched one of those at the French Open this year. One of the younger players blew through the first 3 rounds of that tournament, only to disintegrate in the 4th round. I could tell by the way she walked onto the court that it wasn't going to be a good day. In fact, I looked at her and I went, oh no. There was no energy. There was no light in her eyes. Her shoulders seemed slumped, like she was already defeated. I shook my breath and went, wow, this is going to be a long match. Then I watched her swing for a little over an hour, making 26 unforced errors. 26, that's a lot. An unforced error is the player's failure to make an obtainable shot not caused by the opponent's brilliant play. It's a mistake, like hitting it in the net. In tennis, that's a common major unforced error. I watched it happen again at Wimbledon this year. Many times, it's the younger player who's nervous about their match, maybe playing on center court for the first time. Shots they easily made before are suddenly out of their reach. And then they'll get mad, and then they might throw a racket. It's just when they lose their cool, that's not going to happen. Shots they never would have missed are suddenly the norm. Unforced errors are in tennis, volleyball, basketball, baseball, lacrosse. You heard me right. So whether or not the sport actually tracks unforced errors, it's in every sport. There are always mindless mistakes made during the intensity of play. Mindless. Yeah, that's a pretty good word to explain them, because more often, in my opinion, those unforced errors happen because their head's not in the game. And when that happens, they lose the game. They're not beaten by the opponent because they have beaten themselves. They essentially have given a gift to their opponent. In fact, welcome back to a new season of Money In and Money Out. I took some time off this summer to watch Wimbledon and the Olympics. Well, not really. I was recovering from having my right knee replaced. After 3 surgeries, it was time. And so I had to do that. Thanks for those concerned listeners who reached out to inquire about my radio silence. I was encouraged to keep up with physical therapy by watching others play the sports they love. In fact, Wimbledon's opening day this year was the day I had surgery. Wasn't that timely? My in-home physical therapist for 3 weeks' son is a tennis player. She thought it was funny that Wimbledon was on every time she came in. A colleague of mine and I were talking about the many similarities between unforced errors in sports and unforced errors in business. Welcome to the table, my friend and colleague, Theresa Narantic. Theresa is not only a recognized consultant and speaker, she has also been refereeing volleyball for 43 years. Oh my gosh, 43. She's not that old. She's only 50. I don't know how that happened. She's been refereeing since she was 7 years old. And she's an NCAA Division I volleyball referee for 18 years. In fact, Theresa joined us earlier this year. I don't know if you listened to the podcast about philanthropy, but that was Theresa. So welcome back to the table, Theresa.
My gosh, Suze, it's always great to be here with you. And what a fun introduction. Thank you so much. Yep. Sports is in my blood. I have 2 passions, one of them is sports because I've been an athlete all my life. And the second one is dentistry. So how fun that we can find some synergy and commonalities between what we do recreationally and what we do for our colleagues, for our clients. It's a great synergy.
Yeah, I know. And it's so funny because every time you and I get together, okay, so a little just claimer here. I wouldn't disclaim you, but a little claimer is that Theresa and I are good friends. And so we talk often, as most everybody that comes to my table. I'll be to be fair, most everybody is. But we talk often, and most often it always involves sports. In fact, we talked for about an hour before we actually recorded this. And, 99% of it was about the match that I was just watching before we started talking and the Olympics.
Yeah, between that and the Olympics. How about that? This is a great venue for us to have conversations about sports right now, just seeing an incredible Olympic, right?
Oh, my gosh. It was amazing. And I was texting Theresa during the volleyball because there were so many things I didn't know about. I was like, wait, what's that guy, the person, I used to call them setters. There's another person.
Where's the uniform? The libero that dashes in and out? Yes. Yeah, it's relatively new to the game, but it adds another dimension, right? It adds a way to take away some more unforced errors in volleyball.
Yeah, it was really funny because I had just looked up, what's it called again?
Libero.
Libero, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
The libero, I just looked up what the libero was because I paused it and went, what the heck? And looked it up and read what it was. And I'll be darned if just like the next 2 plays, the libero went past that line that she's not supposed to go past. And I went, oh, and there you go. She got called for that.
Yeah, right.
There, that's the point.
Well, good for you for being educated about sports. We kind of think we know in the back of our head the intricacies, and I know you know a heck of a lot more about tennis than I do, but being informed is a great way to appreciate a sport a little bit more because you can really understand what's going on with that particular position player when you know what their abilities are, what they can and can't do.
Well, that's the greatness of the Olympics. I mean, seriously, there are things we would have never had seen, even ping pong. I mean, seriously, ping pong. So I was watching them and they would hold the ball in their hand, cup up, and then they just very subtly drop the ball and hit it. I mean, they'd flick their wrist over and hit it at the same time. And I was like, I had to replay it in slow motion to try to figure out what they did and to watch it because you couldn't see it. Anyways, it was ping pong and water polo. Oh my gosh. I watched so many of the U.S. women's and amazing. So all the time that I watched, you could tell I get excited about it because I get tongue twisted, but I know. All the time I'm watching, I'm going, ow, oh, ow. How does that happen? Oh, honey, I hope y'all stretched or you're going to end up having knee replacement like me.
Well, and there's so many things that we see while they're out there performing, Susan, but how much goes into their performance? Like you said earlier about the strategy, right? It's a mental game. They don't only perform and get ready physically, they get ready mentally and emotionally. And how about this year's platform, right? Could it have been any more exciting for them to be challenged physically, to be challenged mentally, but how about the emotional component that went along with the games being delayed, them having to come in with COVID hanging over their heads, all the changes that had to be made in Tokyo for the accommodation, the fans couldn't be there. And they usually have their fans in the stands and the bleachers. They thrive on that noise that comes from the crowd. I felt especially bad for our gymnasts, not our the gymnasts, right? They're
our gymnasts. I just like to say they're our gymnasts. I felt that way about all of the teams. They're my team.
Right, from the U.S., but I mean universally from every country. Yes. Some have more fans in the bleachers than others, but those kids, and I can say kids because, as you said, I've been roughing volleyball 43 years, and I'm almost 50 now. We anticipate that that's going to be there. That's the arena that we have always appreciated sports in.
So my my youngest goddaughter, was practicing to be an Olympic ice skater. And we said for years, we'll be in the stands. I was going to make it happen. So Russia was going to be her debut. I mean, we had it figured out to the time, the hours and everything. She didn't make it, and that's okay. But it's like, what about the ones that did make it and their family still couldn't be there? Yeah. Oh my gosh. After everything they've poured in. Yeah. I mean, I know the years and the training and the coaching and the tumbles and the setbacks that Gwen went through, and just how hard that was for her. I can't imagine making it and getting to that point and not being able to share it with those that helped you get there. Yeah. Although I'll say from a spectator standpoint, watching it on the TV, I loved seeing all the families at home. I loved what Windows Teams did in being able to provide that little connection to them after they won, or what, it was most of the ones that won, I guess, and seeing them all celebrate and encourage their player. That was awesome.
Yeah. Boy, so, we've all had to go through these things, right? There's acclimation. Yeah. The only thing that we can count on in the future is that things are going to change. So brilliantly, they have adapted to the change that they needed to make to be athletes.
No kidding. Theresa, tell me a little bit, how in the world did you get into refereeing for volleyball?
So long story made short, even though you think I might be 50 because that was your intro, I actually graduated from high school in 1976. Does that ring a bell to you, Susan, in women's sports? 1976.
Yeah. We were not, just for the younger listeners or the male listeners that don't know, we were not encouraged to be in sports.
Well,
during that age.
The Title IX referendum passed in 1976. So we had sports that were organizations, but we didn't have competitive level sports. So that introduced itself. So I did play ball. Actually, the ball of choice in high school was the 16-inch or the 12-inch or 14-inch softball. So it was a white ball my whole life. Now it's golf. But I didn't compete as these kids are able to today. So when I went to college, I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign. And again, we didn't have money. There was no sport team. So we were the onset of the softball club at the University of Illinois. Likewise, the only team that actually had a team was basketball because they had a gate. So all of the other sports, volleyball, lacrosse, soccer, all of them that did not have gates were self-funded. So in order for us to help each other, we helped the volleyball team helped us. So we refereed for them. They umpired for us. They helped us get our fields ready. We helped them get the courts ready. So that was my introduction to volleyball. And so to referee volleyball, it was kind of a necessity for us to help those athletes in our counter season sports. And that's where the love started, So when you love sports, you figure out a way to love every sport, whether it's a spectator or whether it's being involved in it. So it's from my sophomore year in college to today. That's my love is volleyball.
Wow. So we had very few organized sports in our schools at that time that allowed women. And I hurt my knee, my first time I hurt my knee, the one that just got replaced, first time in junior year in high school. And the doctors actually told my parents, she's a girl, she should just quit playing tennis. And so that was the time. And unfortunately, Title IX happened after I was in high school.
Yeah.
So, but I had already started playing in college. There were in fact, the best coach I ever had was a Davis Cup player.
Wow.
And he was amazing. Oh my gosh, he was so good. He was so good that it was the first year that this college had sports, had women's tennis as a sport. And we went and beat a state college. And that was a huge celebration, but he was awesome. He was awesome. I think it had a whole lot more to do about the coach than it did for us players. Yeah. So anyways, that might be a whole nother topic. So tell me, when you got into volleyball, tell me about refereeing.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything that you dedicate yourself to, there's a lot of preparation that goes along with it. It's not just, going and buying a whistle. And not only do I referee at the collegiate level, I referee at USAV, which is age group, and I also referee high school. All three of them have different rule sets, different rules for they're basically the same, but there are caveats that you need to know in a moment. So the uniforms are different, the rule books are different, the expectations of the coaches are different. We remember at the collegiate level, these men and women that are coaching teams, jobs depend on whether they win or lose. So the intensity is quite magnified when you're at Division I competitions. So it's the preparation, and you run it like a business. You're an independent contractor. You seek contracts from assigners. You accept them. You figure out how to get to and from, how to stay overnight if they're long, weekend tournaments or whatever that is. Last year it was kind of crazy. We had to be at site 24 hours ahead for COVID testing, then had to be locked down until the day of the match. And then, perform our match. And if it was a longer period of time, the same thing. We'd have to be tested again. So that was a year that I hope we never have to repeat. So there's a lot of preparation in being a top-notch volleyball official. So and you're rated every time you go out onto a court. So not only does the win-loss happen for the athletes, but you are rated on your performance every time that you enter a volleyball arena. So it's challenging.
I thought it was interesting this year in the Olympics, and I don't know if it has been in prior years, that the refereeing, they actually got to do that recall to see if the ball was really out.
Yeah, so CRS happened, I'm going to say 5 years ago at the collegiate level. So it is nice. If they have the proper equipment, it works really, really well. And it does give the benefit to the athlete for that coach to have 3 challenges in each match so that he or she can validate the calls of the officials. And it's interesting because at the Olympic level, there's 4 line judges and a referee, R1, which is a referee up, and the referee that's down is the R2. So there's 6 sets of eyes on every contact. But to see one of those just minuscule touches on a block that doesn't even bend a finger back, it's nice to be able to look at that CRS and see if there's any judgment that can be changed because of that.
No kidding. I mean, they would do the reviews, and you would see it barely touch the finger.
Right.
And it's like
supposed to see that.
Oh my gosh.
But now, Sue, how about in tennis? They've got the eyes on the lines that are able to electronically decide whether or not the ball has touched the ground. Yes. Yeah.
So in most tournaments they do, but in the French they do not.
Interesting.
I think it was the French. Wasn't it the French, or was it Wimbledon? No, Wimbledon had it.
I think Wimbledon does, yes.
Might have been the French, and they were arguing play.
Yeah.
And so it was like, no, it's not that spot. In fact, I wish I could remember the specifics of it, but there was quite an argument in one of the recent tournaments about a player who said that wasn't where it hit. You're looking at the wrong spot. And so when they look at where things hit in a review, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I think there have been a lot of things that might have been planned differently with some of the earlier matches that I remember, some of the historical matches that I remember.
If they had that technology, right?
Yeah, if they'd had that technology.
But getting back to our topic, we're talking about unforced errors and forced errors. That's an error too. I mean, the officials make errors. It's not our we don't choose to go out there and say, hey, on the fourth ball, this play, I'm going to make an error. But it happens, right? We use our best human judgment to be able to make the best decisions. And speaking to volleyball, there can be 60 contacts in one rally. So you're making a judgment about all of them, every contact, whether it's legal or illegal, whether it's touch to floor, whether it's a third or fourth contact, whether like you were saying, the libero contacted the ball in the front zone or the back zone. Did it touch an antenna? Did it go outside of the margin? So there's every time that the ball goes from one player to the next or over the net, there's judgment to be made and an opportunity for an error.
Yeah, I mean, and the unforced errors in tennis are probably a little bit more obvious because there's only two players,
right,
as opposed to volleyball having two courts full of players. So
right, yeah,
that would be a big difference. Two players. Of course, I'm speaking from singles, so there could be four players. So if you're doubles, but I only played singles. I didn't see, how do I say this? People didn't want to play tennis with me in a doubles match because I was always aim for the opponent's body. Is that bad? It's not bad. I just want to say
strategy.
It is a really good strategy, by the way.
If it works.
Well, they can't return it if it hits them. So
right, that's true.
That was kind of my thought, and I was in high school. But by the way, they brought that up in Wimbledon, the body shots and how hard they are to respond to and to react to. That when they're right there at them, they can't do it. And it's a great, great strategy.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
I felt justified. It took, a long time from high school till just last month to be justified.
Well, what did they know? What did they know?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Anyways, I really enjoyed singles because I had to focus more if it's just me. If I'm responsible for that ball, I can't depend on anybody else to get it.
Right.
I have to get it.
Sure.
And
and you're right. I mean, when we get to team sports, lacrosse, water polo, volleyball, any of those other sports, we have to trust that the process is working, right? We have to trust that the defensive players are going to get the ball into an area where an offensive player can put the ball up, where another offensive player can kill the ball into the opponent's court. So you had to trust on yourself that was going to happen. But in team sport, it becomes a conditional factor that we trust the other five players that are on the court, and we also trust that the officiating team is going to see clearly the outcome. So that makes it a little bit more
not
difficult.
just on an offense stand too, but also the defense.
Yes,
that the player is playing in the zone.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Defense.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the difference is between forced errors, because there are forced errors, unforced errors, and just having a great play?
So, well, let's let everybody know what a forced error is first, right? Or an unforced error. I think you described that, Susan, is something that we technically or mentally do wrong. There's no other player's involvement. We just do wrong. So that could be a service that the height of the ball was not, it wasn't thrown high enough, that there wasn't enough body leverage to get the ball into play, and it goes into the net. Right. So that's an unforced error. I did it myself. No other opponent, nobody else caused that to happen. An unforced error, or a forced error, then would be picture the Olympics where there's a hitter that goes up and they execute correctly. they hit it into the blocker's hands, and it is blocked out of play. Right. So another player caused that to happen. So I executed fine. The error happened because there was an interaction with an opponent or my own team member that caused it not to score a point. Right. And then you're right. We do have great plays, and you can go back to anything that you were watching. You can see track and field. You can see the high jumpers. You can see as swimmers, anything that happened. And they were just fantastic. They watched film prior to, they knew what was going to happen. They anticipated what was going to happen. They put the ball or what's called ball, because that's what we're kind of talking about right now, where the opponent wasn't. It was just a fabulous play. So there was no error whatsoever. It was just an awesome understanding of what was going on and an incredible execution. So those are the three availabilities that we have for any event, whether it's business or a sports. That's what happens. It's either forced or unforced because we've done it ourselves, or it just is executed phenomenally.
So unforced errors are plays in which it was within the player's control to win the point, but then they just botched it up.
Okay.
So
that's a great way of putting it.
Something was completely obtainable, but because the player botched it, they lost.
Yep, right.
So,
dun, 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 dun.
Transitioning.
Those are the ones that you don't want to go back to the huddle afterwards and talk about, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. So, moving then and finding the correlation between unforced errors in business, just kind of quickly, I mean, we'll get into talking about it in detail, but kind of quickly, what are some business unforced errors?
Wow. Lack of communication, right? So if it's going on in my head and I haven't shared it with my team, I make the mistake because I haven't shared that information. It can be even, we're talking about a serve in tennis and in volleyball. Let's talk about the initial point of contact. The service is how we originate a ball in a sporting event. How do we originate that conversation when a new patient calls the practice? Are we communicating well with them at that point? Are we getting the information that we need to? Are we putting the plan in place? And it goes back to even the preparation. So have we been trained well enough, right? Have we practiced well enough? We talked about Tiger Woods earlier. Tiger Woods is arguably the most phenomenal golfer that this world has ever seen. He's got a regimen. Up until this last incident, right? He practiced 5 days a week for 5 hours a day. I mean, and his routine was he ran 4 miles. He'd go to the gym and lift. He'd do 3 or 4 hours of short game. He'd play some holes. He'd go back to driving. And then he'd play basketball just to get his head in the place where he needed to. Or he played tennis too. I don't know if you knew that. So
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, when you're an innate, skilled athlete, I think you can play everything. So, yeah. So,
it's that hand and eye coordination.
Michael Jordan out on the Major League Baseball field for a part of his career, right?
Right. So, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So, I mean, anything that we have control over that we choose not to, or we're not skilled enough to execute, becomes that forced error or that unforced error.
The other, you talked about not being prepared, and that is going to the extent of like the routine that you talked about with Tiger Woods and what he does, but also not being prepared might not be getting your skills on track. So one of the things I know with tennis anyway is to know your opponent. Mm-hmm. To know where they hit the ball. I mean, you do that with volleyball too. I think any team sport, doesn't it? Watch the tape.
Hours and hours of tape. Yeah, absolutely.
Watch the tape, find out where their holes are.
Yeah.
In baseball, in fact, because, everybody knows I'm a Ranger fan. That's not a big deal. Do not send me any hate mail. And I don't want to talk about them right now. I'm really frustrated. And we won't talk about the Cubbies for Theresa.
Because there are no Cubs. They've all been traded.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of the way I feel about the Rangers. Who? I mean, every time, don't go there. Anyways, you'll see them pulling out of their back pocket list of the batters
Yeah,
that are coming up to bat and find out where they hit and stuff and strategies. And so it would be really good to be a switch hitter, I think. Anyways, but being prepared on that level and knowing the opponent or knowing the game plan, I guess is the other way to say that, and to have a strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are really big on business strategy.
Well, Susan, the way that I put business is you're either reactive or proactive, right? And there's nothing in between. You either are, and the same thing happens with sports, right? So watching game tapes, knowing your opponent, knowing as much as you can prior to the delivery of your execution is important. So we see successful dentists, and those are the ones that are very, very proactive. What's the marketplace look like? What does the competition look like? Where can I increase the value of my human resources so that I have a team that can support my vision? And the reactive ones are after the shoe drops. Well, what the hell do I do now? Right. So the same thing. I mean, there's such a strong synergy in athletics as there are in business. And you're absolutely right. Any place where we can make a move and put our business ahead is where we need to do that. And move those unforced errors in. I mean, sure, they can become forced. I mean, we can make a demographic change where maybe I'm not doing implants in my practice right now. And I start doing that, so I've made a change in my philosophy or my venue of what I'm giving to my patients, but maybe across the street is just finishing up their training and now they're doing it too. So at least I've made that attempt, and I don't know what they're doing, but I put something in place so that I can be better and give better service and a broader spectrum of service to my patients. But, without knowing what my competition is doing.
Yeah. And what I wanted to say too, just for our listeners to understand that regardless of what you implement in your business, you will have unforced errors. It happens. It's your response to those errors is what matters.
It sure does. How about the tennis player that makes an error, right? Whether it's forced or unforced, and their racket ends up in the creek.
Yeah. John McEnroe.
Yeah. That's a blast from the past, right? Yeah.
I mean, I really wish that somebody had gone back through all of his tapes to figure out how many rackets he's broken over the years, right?
Yeah.
But
how you react to it, Susan, is not only what's going to drive the business, but you're as a leader, right? All of the people that are listening to your podcast right now are figuring it out. Either they're dentist owners, they're managers, there's somebody in a leadership capacity. The people that are working for you are also learning from that. So your unforced error becomes a forced error for what they're going to be doing next. They're watching you, they're calibrating what you're doing, how you're reacting to it, and then they're going to use that information as part of their toolbox to interact with a team member, interact with a patient, deliver care. So those things are trickle down. So unforced can become a forced, and it can end up with losing the point as well.
Well, there is an offense and a defense of the unforced errors. And so one of the things that I noticed a few years ago, Serena had a meltdown, pretty infamous meltdown at the U.S. Open, I think it was. And something happened after that when she felt her emotion getting the best of her, and I'm truly speculating because I really don't know exactly what's been going through her head, but this is what it looks like, because she would turn with her back to the court to regroup her head and to get her head refocused. So when she had an error, she would shake it off. We've heard, if you're in sports, you've always heard shake it off, move on. And so there is an offense and a defense to the unforced errors. Let's break down the unforced errors to those two different areas. So what about offense?
So you have the ball, you're in control of it, of whatever, when you're the offensive player, right?
Right.
Yeah. So an unforced error for you is initiating it. So I think that what you're talking about with Serena right now is a defense unforced error, right? So what do we do?
No, it's just an error. it hasn't mattered whether it was offense or defense.
Okay. All right. So,
and usually it was on a serve. I didn't see him more.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So to answer that question, right? Offense is how do we initiate it, and how do we change what we're doing to make it be the delivery that we want it to be, right? So unforced error is obviously the things that we've been talking about, making sure that we know the opponent, that we know where we want to put the ball and how to get it there. So, and with every good offense comes the speculation and the training, the mind training that goes along with it. So I'm putting myself in a place where I know what I want to do, and I've already mentally prepared for that execution. So the cross between mental execution and physical execution, I think, is where we're going to marginalize those unforced errors.
Yeah, that's being focused.
It is being focused, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many times, and let's take it off the court and put it into our day-to-day business dealings, when we have the time to deal with one person, let's just say the phone's ringing right now and I've got to take care of a client, a patient, or whatever it is, and I don't have anything else going on. I don't have the phone ringing. I don't have somebody coming in. I don't have somebody that needs a screening for COVID to be, brought into the practice. I don't have a patient that needs a treatment plan. I can really focus and see what I need to do. But when I start it'd be like Serena, right? Instead of receiving one service, there's 12 people on the service lines and they're all hitting a serve at her at the same time, right? So sometimes
that might be the only way I could beat her, by the way.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I think that we have to really...
I wouldn't even beat her then.
We really have to focus on how do we alleviate the possibilities of all of those errors and really focus on that one thing, get it done, and move on to the next thing that we have to do. So eliminating that opportunity, I think, is the elimination of opportunities for unforced errors in our business situations.
Well, you had said earlier, you only get one time to make a first impression. And so I read this Facebook post from a friend of mine that I told you about earlier. And the first line said, "I am never going back to that dentist ever." And I was like, oh, sunk my heart. And when I speak, I often tell about this example of that first impression and how important it is. She had been a long-time patient, but the offense position, and this was an unforced error that team made, by the way. She walked in the door and the gal at the front desk was on her personal cell phone. And she just waved to her and told her and pointed to the chairs to sit down. And from the post, she said she must have had some way to notify them in the back that I was there, because in a few minutes, someone from the back had a chart, opened the door, had a chart in their hand, and without even looking into the waiting area, which I was the only one, she said, she called my name. She said it was so sterile. She led the way down the hall, never talked to her, never chit-chatted, never asked her how she was doing, took her in, said, "Go ahead and sit down," put the bib around her neck, and said, "The doctor will be with you in a minute." Never talked to her. The doctor came in and said, "Hello, blah, blah, blah," and still didn't greet her. "Today we're going to blah, blah, blah." No conversation, nothing. She said, and it ended that way. She walked to the front. They told her what her total would be for the day. And that was it.
Wow,
I mean,
you feel warm and fuzzy, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I could feel the love coming out on
so
her
all
post.
Of those that you described were forced errors. There was no reason why any of those had to happen. They were forced. They did it. There was no other interaction between them.
Unforced.
Right, unforced. There was no reason why any of those had to happen. And then let's layer it with COVID right now, right? So if this happened prior to COVID, absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
And now we've got that layer of COVID that anticipates that we're going to have some error because the expectations of our patients are going to be different than what we've delivered previous to today. So that makes it even harder with that additional layer of of formality that we've been forced to deliver.
But you and I both know precedence is set from the top down. And so oftentimes it's the captain of the team that will rule and will set the tone for the team. It's the leader of the practice that sets the tone for the team.
Well, let's go back to that communication, Susan, right? I mean, it all starts at the top, right? So that morning huddle is critical. Now, we know that we have COVID to deal with, so we're going to talk about each individual patient, what the expectations are. And I think that's the deal, right? The correlation between our sporting, events that we're talking about and our business events is the correlation of what the expectations are, right? So if we know what those expectations are and we deliver on those, we're going to be golden. But if we don't know what the expectations are and we don't know what to deliver, then we can chalk it up to that unforced error time after time after time.
And that's so simple. Team meetings in the morning is so simple.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In multiple doctor practices, you know what I've seen lately, Theresa? And I've had this phone call a few times in the last year. Multiple doctor practices, they're not meeting. So the team needs to meet, but the doctors need to meet at least once a month, if not once a week. That should be helping
your business because it sounds like chaos to me. It's just pure chaos, and it's planned chaos, right? So if you're not working as a team, let's talk about the Rangers for a minute, right?
Let's don't.
Let's just kind of humor me here a little bit. Everybody wants to play first base tonight when they go out onto the field. Everybody wants to play first base. What kind of a team is that, right? Who's going to deliver the pitch? You can't have that. We've got to have people that know their place, know what's expected of them so that we can deliver that optimal care to our patients. And yes, COVID is a blanket. Let's not use it as an excuse. It's something that we need to work with and work on. It's not an excuse. Teamwork has to be there, and we have to have leadership that appreciates and instills teamwork so that everybody doesn't rush out onto the field at the top of the first inning and play first base.
Well, and let's talk about the communication too, because as of the recording of this podcast, COVID numbers are going up. The Delta variant is getting an upper hand. As a leader of a practice, you can't not ignore that.
Right.
You can't, because it's in the foreminds of every single one of your employees.
Yeah.
They're all thinking about it, whether they say anything about it or not.
Well, Susan,
and if you're not open to listening or talking about it, and you shut down your employees' concerns, that's not effective communication either.
No.
Now, I'm not talking about if they're overly concerned. I'm talking about really addressing their heart concerns, because we all kind of probably have a little bit of PTSD from the whole last year and a half. And we all feel like we're waiting for that other shoe to fall. So you need to bring that out and say, okay, here's what I've heard. The COVID numbers are in our county. We are going to, and you can decide what you're going to implement. Be the leader of your practice and don't wait for them to get panicky. You take charge now. We've been through this for a year and a half. Take charge of your practice and start implementing some things, whether you need to go back to the temperature, knowing whether they have a temp for the patients to wait in their car. Whatever you decide, you put it into place.
Right.
And that helps with your patients too.
Right. That would fall under unforced error. I remember in March of 19 or 20, when we started this whole deal, right? The patients or the practices that were more cohesive were the ones that the leader stepped up and said, here's what I'm hearing, and allowed their team to converse with them and share their fears. We all want to be heard. We all want to know, let the people that we work with and around, that this is what I'm concerned about. This is what I anticipate, and have that leader who we trust, by the way, because we work for them and we get a paycheck from them. We understand that they do great dentistry, whatever it is that they have shown us that we should really trust and have confidence in them and have that communication, right? To make the workplace an easier place. Because guess what? The doctor doesn't talk to every patient. We do. The team members talk to those patients. So what I'm hearing from the doctor, I'm going to be able to confidently share with the patients that are approaching me about the same subjects rather than giving them my own version of it, right? So the communication, is going to be authentic. It's going to come from the leader that we trust.
Yeah, I was really floored last year to hear both sides. I heard from practices where they had not even communicated with the team members after they were shut down. Mm-hmm. That blew me away. Mm-hmm. How do you not communicate with your team members to let them know what's going on? If anything, just to reach out and say, how are you guys doing? From a caring, you develop that care responsibility. But the best ones I heard of were the ones that called their seniors and asked them if they needed anything. Did they, how are they doing? Are they safe? And I heard of several practices that actually went and got them groceries. Yeah. Oh, I just thought that was so cool.
Well,
that was so cool.
It's empathetic and it's authentic, right? So those are the clients that we have that are authentically caring individuals. They don't care if tooth number 19 has an MOD resin filling. They care about the people that they work for, the people that they care for, and what a great message it's sending to the base of people that work for those practitioners, their team, and the rest of the patients that have known to trust and have confidence in them as well. So absolutely, it has a lot of residual benefit.
Yeah, and it's really good when you contact your patients if you don't ignore what things are going on, because your patients could actually cancel because they're afraid. And so if you are proactive in contacting them and talking to them, that would avoid the unforced error part of that business.
Sure.
Communication is so important, isn't it?
It's essential. They're going to get information somewhere. And whether it's good information or valid information or displaced rhetoric like we hear on the television and radio, again, I would like to hear information from somebody that I trust. So getting in front of it, being proactive, and we talked about that earlier, Suze, too, is, you get in the best position. So when I'm playing shortstop, I'm not going to play shortstop behind the pitcher's mound. I'm going to get in the best position where I can be effective and efficient to deliver what I need to. So I know where I'm going to stand. And you talked about switch hitters, right? If it's a left-handed hitter, I'm going to be closer to second base. If it's a right-handed hitter, I'm going to be, where I am back in the well. And if I'm not there, I'm giving the opportunity for that offensive player to put a ball where I can't get it. So being proactive is what we need to do in business settings. To eliminate the unforced error, I need to be efficient and effective in my position.
So, and that needs to happen all the time, not just during these times. That's what's interesting to me is that, people that were caught off guard last year had not learned how to be proactive and did not have a plan ready to be in place should anything weird happen, like COVID.
Or the Delta variants, 18 months later. Yes.
We thought I am just about to start traveling for conventions that are opening up and doing speaking. And here we got the Delta variant going on. So, I feel so badly for all of these conventions trying to figure out what to do in the midst of this. And, I'm glad that that's not me trying to figure out. I just have to deliver if they go. So, it's an amazing time, but even beyond this time, they should always be positioned, have a plan, have a strategy. One of the areas, and you and I both know this, one of the areas that doctors don't often have a plan is even just knowing the reports. Just knowing what they need to look for in the reports. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, You know, I can't tell you, I have a service called Ask the Expert,
Mm-hmm.
and I spend 2 hours with the docs on the phone, and I show them through my eyes what I would look for if I was doing an embezzlement investigation. And so I show them the reports. I teach them for their particular practice software, what does this look like? And I get in and I show them, oh, look, these treatment plans have had the fees changed. And they're like, what? Why did that change? So then we go in and we look at some of the insurance plans. I mean, it's fascinating. That's a strategy, is actually to learn to know what to execute and know what to look for. That's part of the planning too. But if they are pretty complacent or they don't have a coach, more often I get the referrals from the consultants because their doctors don't know where to look. So,
or they don't even know to look. Let's look at their background, Suze. They went to undergraduate school, and they almost all of them have done some kind of science, right? So they're a chemistry major, a physiology, whatever kind of science major. Then they went on to 4 years of dental school, and perhaps they did a residency, or they went on and got their degree in specialty. So go back through that 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, and count up the number of hours that they have studied business. And if you come up, I mean, you're given a 2-hour session, it doesn't compare at all to the 8-10 years that they've spent learning the mouth and the oral health systemic link. So I understand that, but then you go and you seek the expert opinion. You get somebody like you and you hire them and say, I need to know this, because it's not enough anymore. And I've said this is a coined phrase that I have used for about 20 years now. When I first started in dentistry, the dentist was a dentist who owned a business. That's how it worked, right? Now you own a business that happens to be dentistry. It's so competitive. We've got DSOs, we've got corporate, we've got, you've got to know the industry. You cannot be a lucrative business only knowing the mouth.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you really do. And you've got to have a good coach, and that's what you do.
Look at Tiger Woods has still got a coach.
Yeah.
He still has, well, I haven't talked to him recently, but I don't know if he's back out on the tee box hitting balls or not after his last injury. But nonetheless, they all do. Brady has they're all coached, but mentally they're coached, physically, they're coached psychologically. It just, you can't do it by yourself. You're not going to be successful because there is too much out there that you have to circumvent and navigate to be a good business owner.
Right. And a lot of the kids that start off in sports start off with their dads or their parents teaching or helping them. And so getting that kind of non-expert help, or maybe their dad was a coach or their mom was a coach, so many of the Olympic stories talked about, which was so cool, talked about their parents and the sports that they did, their parents did, and how they helped and they coached. And so, but there reaches that point that you get a professional coach, that someone can help you really refine, that sees when you're taking your swing, that you're leaning too far back on your left leg or your right leg, or you're slumping your shoulder, or you're dropping, like in baseball, you're dropping your bat and you need to hold it up. And so they will point out those things to help you be better at your game. And that's what we do as coaches in dentistry, to help them be better at dentistry. Yeah. Talk about some of the things you've done, because you've done some really unique things in dentistry here.
Well, you know what? The need changes, and you have to be a little bit, resilient to being in one foxhole. So right now, the major emphasis of what I'm doing is practice transitioning. Getting a new owner coming in. There's a lot of practices that 65, 67-year-old owners are, deciding that this is a great time. COVID has made them make the decision to move on. So transitioning a practice, having the patients stay on and say yes to this new practitioner, getting the team cohesive, looking at the financials, finding opportunities. And opportunities are everywhere. Opportunities can be in marketing. They can be in human resources. They can be in cross-training your team, making sure that everybody knows clinical and administrative. So if we have a downed player, somebody that goes out with COVID, somebody that goes on vacation, we don't lose the play. We can still continue to execute. So transitioning is a huge thing right now in the practice. The other thing is the insurance companies are just really messing with the profitability of businesses. So navigating through that and figuring out what that best plan is for each business it's not a custom playbook. It's not the Broncos.
It's not a boiler template
to the Bears. Exactly. You've got to figure out what's going on in your demographics. What can you support with the team that you have? There's so many pieces of the puzzle that you really just need to meld and find the best solution for that particular practice. So one size does not fit all. You can't just go in and do verbal skills training and walk away and think that they're going to be successful. There's a lot of things that are going on offensively and defensively that we have to put into the strategy for that team to be successful.
And that strategy, that word strategy, is so key.
Yeah,
for every business. Not just dentistry, but for every business.
Well, absolutely. Look at and getting away off track from athletes, the businesses that were hit the hardest during this COVID, the entertainment business, the food business, the restaurant business, hospitality altogether, literally closed down. So the strategies and the people that are running the ships in those areas are strategic wizards to be able to make sure that, that they don't have to put the, gone out of business sign in the door during these times. So yeah, strategy is crazy.
I always think of it as a little bit like computer programming, and the basic line was, if this happens, then this.
Yeah.
If then.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sometimes how we have to think of it, especially this last year. If this happens, then this. If this happens, then this.
Well, and you have to be prepared to make that change. You can't just talk about it, right? You have to be fearless. And I think that just with the mentalities of dentists, being high D personalities for the most part, they are not resilient. They want to walk that lane that they've always been in, which could be their demise at this point. You have to step up and you have to be fearless. You have to gather information, gain information, make choices that are most probably going to suit you. And then be able to spin on a dime if you need to. So you have to get off of that fear pot and jump into the fearless and make good decisions. And what my clients, I say, it's not just about you, doctor. It's about the team that you employ. Their livelihood depends on the decisions that you're making. So yeah, you could probably walk away today and be okay for the rest of your life. But we also have these women predominantly that are working for us that we need to make sure that they have a livelihood as well. So it's, you got to get off that fear pot and jump into the fearless fire.
I've often thought that it's almost an unforced error if you are not kind and you're not an encourager. Because it never comes back. You get more with honey is what my mom used to say, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I told the people when I had my knee replaced, because I know, it's a hospital. You're in a hospital, and I know that they've all been worn thin.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have patients that are not nice and are in a lot of pain, quite frankly. We tend to be frustrated and to show our anger and hostility and, road rage, those kinds of things that will come out when we are emotionally spent. I know that happens. And so I told the people that were taking care of me in the hospital, I said, I made a decision. I wanted to be the best patient that you had ever seen, that you would walk away from me being here. Oh my gosh, wasn't that amazing? She was so easy to take care of and such a joy, and she made us laugh. I said, that's my goal. I never want you to say for me, what a pain in the butt. I didn't quite use that word, but what a pain in the butt. We hope we don't get any more patients like her. And so wouldn't it be great to determine that you're going to be the kind of boss that your employees say, Oh my gosh. They were so great as a boss. They were really good. It didn't mean that you give them everything that they want, but that you lead with integrity and that you pave the way. This last year, I think I told you about this. I had a dentist call me that has had a revolving door of employees. Mm-hmm. And she called because she was told to call by her daughter for an embezzlement. Somebody embezzled in the practice. Very long story short, over a period of time, she finally admitted to me that she was the one that took the cash. And I stopped and I said, I had that hard conversation, as you and I both, as coaches with these athletes, have had to have with their athletes very many times, I'm sure. I told her she was creating a nightmare in her practice and that it was her. She was the problem. It wasn't anybody else. It was her. And that she needed to change. She needed to get counseling or whatever. I've actually had that conversation with a few doctors over the years. And just to be honest with them in a compassionate way, not harsh, but saying, you know, as a coach, as somebody that you are depending on to get the right information, this is what you need to hear. And it was interesting to have that conversation with her over time. And, you know, but that's all the important part of having a coach that will tell you the truth.
Well, you're never going to improve. You're not going to improve by having somebody candy coat it, right? So
right.
In a lot of cases, what we'll do is ask permission. Doctor, may I tell you exactly what you need to hear? Because some of them just don't want to hear it, you know. But if they do want to improve and they want to make sure that they delete or reduce the number of unforced or forced errors, then they really do want to hear what you have to say. And the delivery is really important. How do we say what we have to say so that it is to the point, and it's not harmful to their self-esteem and their ego?
Right. Yeah.
And that's the hard part for us, but you know what, we can get through that. Delivering the information that's necessary, not what they want to hear, is what is most important.
Because the coaches that do that for the athletes make them better athletes. Not only that, they make them better people.
Yeah, agreed.
And
I mean,
so,
what we learn in the business arena, what we learn on the athletic field, what we learn when we drive down a street with other motorists, teaches us something about who we are and how we need to integrate with our philosophies and our visions of being human beings, right? And that can happen anywhere. I'm a winner. I want to be a winner on a volleyball court. I want to be a winner on a softball diamond, but I'm never going to give away the opportunities of first being, you know, who I am and being a Christian. It's always going to happen with ethic and morals.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
so we can run our business that way too.
We can,
and we should. There's no reason we can't. That's for sure.
But that's also knowing the limitations of what you can and can't do, and getting the help for what you need help with, and fine tuning what you need to fine tune. That's the awesome thing that we really just want you to take away. Theresa, we could talk sports forever. This was fun.
Well, it is for sure. It is. Yeah.
And I could truly talk sports all the time and the various lessons I've learned from engaging in a life of sports. I know you could too.
Absolutely. And heard so many stories. It didn't have to be just me. I've heard so many fun stories through my career, and you know, everybody has. You know, so I think the good thing about this is putting an analogy in place that incorporates a business idea, right? So if you can think differently, you do differently. So when we go into the office and we do the same thing day after day after day, if maybe one of our dentists or two of them or all of them that are listening to this podcast say, oh, okay, I'm going to think about it differently. I'm going to think about it like a sporting event. Maybe then they get that trigger that says, I can get a different result. I've thought of it differently. Yeah, that's our defensive player. This is our offensive player. How can we make it fun? Because you know what? Work can be fun. It doesn't have to be drudgery.
Exactly.
I love what I do, as you do. So we can make it fun for our team as well and take it out of the stereotypic, mill grind of going to work and leaving when the day is done.
Awesome. Hey, tell the listeners your website address.
It's so easy. Speaker.dental. Speaker.dental. So don't do a .com or a .net. It's just speaker.dental.
Awesome.
That's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you, Theresa, so much for joining me. I'll also have that in the show notes for how to get hold of her. Truly, you have a lot of insight to bring to practices, and I'm so appreciative of you.
Sue, thanks so much. It's a great time spending time, whether it's side by side, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's at a conference, whether it's on a webcast. Thank you for the time that we got to spend together today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll see each other soon in person. We haven't done that since February of last year. But
I know
I'm hoping.
It's way overdue.
I know it. No kidding. Well, there were so many fascinating stories in the athletes that made it to the Tokyo Olympics this year. I loved watching the teamwork of the women's water polo. Oh my gosh. I don't know how they do that.
Strength
or how
and
about
endurance.
the story? How about the story of the jumpers who decided to share the gold medal and to not do a jump off? Boy, that was amazing. That was amazing. Qatar and Italy. Wow. Their track and field accomplishments were amazing. Italy, oh my gosh, won, and they did not expect to win. Or how about Tamara Mensah-Stock? You are amazing. I am going to call you out. First Black U.S. woman wrestler to win the gold. Heck, there's only been 2 U.S. women wrestling gold medal winners in history, and she's a fellow Texan. I just wanted to give a big shout out to her. Her joy in winning is why the athletes do this. It was amazing. I had tears in my eyes. Sun Yu Lee, oh my goodness. Overcoming all the emotional obstacles that she's had to face these past few years made her stronger in her competition. And the sad part of Simone Biles, but the wisdom that she knew that she needed to stop. Kudos to you, Simone. I mean, that was a strong woman. And that decision that she had to make will carry on and help her make decisions for the future. 17-year-old Lydia Jacoby on the swim from Seward, Alaska. Oh my gosh, tears strolling down my eyes. Loved watching her high school teammates celebrate. For one of her gold medals, one of 5, she beat the world and Olympic records. Amazing. 17 years old. What lessons has she learned from competing at the Olympics that she will carry for the rest of her life? Or Karsten Warholm of Norway, who broke the world record for the 400-meter hurdles. He didn't expect to win. And oh my gosh, the joy on his face was amazing. Or these gals, how about Sydney McLaughlin, set a new world record. She beat her own world record. Or Dalia Muhammad. Oh my gosh, she was the defending world champion and ran the second fastest time in history. Or Allison Felix. I mean, I've seen her interviewed. Brought me joy to see her little daughter greet her when she came home. She became the Olympic runner with the most Olympic medals, passing Carl Lewis. I just loved the Olympics this year. I mean, they were fun to watch because, I don't know, I guess the NBC did an amazing job of covering the backstories. So kudos to them too. I love watching sports anyway, but the technique in play, I love watching their determination, and I love watching their perseverance. Not all of them won. We all know that. There are winners. There are gold medal winners. There are silver medal winners, and there are bronze. And then there's everyone else. But you know what? I've never been to the Olympics. And so just making it to the Olympic team, that's pretty stinking amazing. And they weren't mentioned nearly as many as some of these that I already talked about, but a big shout out to them because they worked hard and they made it there. For every Olympian that made it to the games, they spent hours training, getting coaching, and spent the heartache for some of them of not quite being good enough to make the team. But you never know if you don't try. That's what my dad used to say all the time. You never know if you don't try. And so try. If you're a listener and you own a business, start developing a plan. Start practicing just like the teams do. Start strategizing. Work hard. Execute that plan. And get the appropriate coaching for your practice. I'll have both Theresa's and my show notes. If we can help you, please don't fail to reach out. And until next time, I've got some great podcasts for you in the future. You've got to stay tuned. This is going to be a great season. Until next time, you guys take care. We'll talk soon.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunsolutions.com.